Good morning and welcome to the second official episode of the Grey Sentinels podcast. I'm Crumb, and with me we have. You guys can all introduce yourselves. We'll just go. We'll just
Oh, that's
go.
fucking lazy, bro.
Is
Is it really morning? What?
It is for me.
Yeah,
Damn.
you just woke up.
It's always morning for me.
Well,
Yeah, you sounded sleepy a little while ago.
I know.
well, all right. I'm Anduin Kayvon, leader of the Grey Sentinels, and I'm hoping we'll be talking about some good stuff today.
I'm Doom, PvP officer for the Grey Sentinels.
I'm
And
Deathsproxy, some guy.
just some guy.
Just some guy.
And I'm Cambiguous, member of the cohort.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. So what are we supposed to talk about? Where is it?
I think it was PvE questing was what we were first on our
PvE
agenda.
questing. So who wants to start us off with PvE questing?
Well, I mean, I think a big thing that people want and that they've been kind of sick from games is, being sent out to kill 500 chickens and bring back, and of those chickens, only 3 of them drop eggs, but you need to get 500 eggs on top of it for a bonus quest. I think we need to do away with those type of quests. I want to have quests that actually matter, that actually want to bring you in and get the lore knowledge learned. I mean, that's kind of a big thing for a lot of people that I know that PvE is they want to actually do something, to actually have stuff that matters, not just do the same crap.
But what happens if the node need 500 chicken eggs?
Well, I mean, it would be kind of cool if Cam, what you said is like if, let's say, mayors or stuff could assign we need certain things for quests, like if they could make like a node necessity thing, like in the upcoming siege or something, they need resources or whatnot, they could send out people to do quests to turn them into node bankers or merchants, and that'd be kind of cool if they could do something like that. But like if it's just like random NPC is giving you this quest, I don't know about that. But
I don't mind fetch quests if they're done right. So like, let's say I like fetch quests that actually have you go and fetch actual in-world resources, not just items specifically made for that quest. So there's a variety of different ways you could acquire that. You could craft it, you could buy it off of your local auction house, you could grind for it, there's mobs that drop it. There's a different variety of ways you can go about completing that fetch quest. I always like
that. It is kind of if they present it in the right way, it would work. But I don't know. I think it's just a lot of people, they kind of got sick of the whole WoW kill so many boars, or you know what, the Make Love Not Warcraft off of South Park. I mean, they completely made fun of that. We just need to kill so many thousands of millions of boars to become the best, to kill he who shall not, who has no life. Like I think that's what people dislike about a lot of MMOs, and that really kill MMOs, because what immersion is there to kill 500 boars, kill 5,000 chickens? You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't seem to pull people in.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like grinding and MMOs really go hand in hand. Like there's gonna be some grind to an extent when there's progression in a game, but I mean, I as far as actual just fetching things, like just go kill boars or whatever, I think those quests are pretty boring. Like I'd at least want there to be some backstory, to why you're killing like a certain thing, and then you move on to like killing something else that's unique, or maybe there's different types of boars. I don't know. Like I think important thing is to make the actual early game PvE combat interesting, to where it's not just like you're just rolling through using the same ability to just deal damage until you can get to level 10 and get to the abilities that you actually give a shit about. Like,
That is a
definitely
hook. You're
make
right.
it
That is
interesting
kind of like
somehow.
a hook for new players coming into the game. And if it's not interesting during that early grind, if they don't understand that it gets better, they may not stick around. I think goes for a lot of players that start into MMOs that don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, like Proxy and Cam, what would your guys' preferred style of PvE questing be? Like, what really has pulled you in? What has worked and hasn't worked in past games for you guys?
I mean, questing in general has never really been that appealing to me. Generally, because I'm such a competitive player, usually I spam the spacebar or the F key to get through the dialogue as fast as possible. Who cares? Like, right, bang, bang, bang. I need to do another quest. It's the fastest way to XP, or I just go grind. Usually, unless the quest have some kind of relevance, or usually I find the attunement quests usually to get into a certain dungeon, they have a lot more sense. They have like a reason, a purpose for actually bothering to do these quests, opposed to a lot of the random ones that go here, grab a chicken and throw it at this person for whatever reason. I think like a better way to approach quests is giving the player freedom in how to approach it. It's not so much in MMO, but in like Divinity games, like the last couple, really gave you those options. You could turn around and kill the quest giver for all we can. Like, this guy sent you to do this. You're like, nah, I'm just gonna kill you and take your stuff, take the reward right off you, rather than the thing. You should give you multiple approaches on how to do the quest, rather than like shoeline you. You shouldn't have to listen to the dialogue of the quests to some degree. You should be able to overhear things, like you go to a tavern, you hear a couple of people talking. That insinuates there's a quest to be had there, but he doesn't really directly tell you that you have to go to X place. I think a lot of older MMOs and some older games used to do that quite a lot, where they would insinuate this happening here or that happening there, and you kind of have to use your own intuition to fill the gaps in and find out where you actually had to go to do the quest. So I think that's a lot better approach to actually doing questing in general, because that's more natural and more how it actually works. Like if you were in a medieval town or something, or a fantasy world, you wouldn't just there's a guy there with a big marker up ahead. That doesn't work like that. It's more of a socialization aspect. Like you go to a tavern, you get drunk, and then someone mentions there's some riches in there, you're like broke because you spent all your money on whatever. So then you need to go make money, and you'll do whatever possible to get that money back, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like you bring up a good thing. Like, the whole point of Ash's creation is Steven and team seem to really want us to explore, find our own way. So not having those little ping exclamation marks above people, NPCs' heads and maybe players' heads, to quest givers. Maybe if those quest givers are like going, "Hey, adventurer, come over here," or something like that, or like, "Let me regale you with the tale," or something like that. That'd be kind of cool to get you more immersed. Because I know when I'm running around, I'll see this guy with an exclamation point when the music's getting all beautiful and stuff, and suddenly, sometimes immersion gets ruined by when you get pulled out of the world a little bit. So
it's kind of hard, because I mean, there is like a good balance between streamlining quests and making sure that new players don't get lost in the process of questing. Like, I don't think you could do an MMO in the style of like a old RPG like Morrowind or something, just because people would just straight up get lost, be running around all over the place. Like, you take the third turn down the path that past the old widow tree. Like, nobody's gonna remember that. I mean, I think you should have clear direction of where to go, not necessarily exactly what to do. Just, like Death was saying, like there's different approaches that you could take to get to the ultimate goal. I think that would be really neat for them to be able to come to some sort of balance.
Yeah, I think
doing that.
Yeah, that could be tied to the social organizations for all we know.
I can give you a good example of another way how to do it. Is this is something my old Dungeons and Dragons DM used to do. Opposed to having some guy walk up to you or talk to you, he says, "Well, what do you want to do in game?" And like, "I want to go find the legendary sword." Well, he offers the suggestion, "Why not go to the library?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." If I go to the library and I think I can ask the guy there, "Is there any legendary swords or certain items or certain materials or whatever? I wanted dragon scales or whatever." There'd be books in the library that other people had written and such. You could go through all these books looking for knowledge and information or possible myths and connect the myths by reading several different books. I mean, they could have that in game where you have to go through like catalogs of books looking for information and kind of piece it together yourself as to where these legendary items or quests or powerful artifacts. And with Ashes of Creation being sort of like an old existing world, there's probably a lot of old lore that they took with them or recaptured or refound that could give hints to or ideas to where some of these old artifacts that were once there that need to be found again.
Mm-hmm. Cam, you were going to say something a bit ago, but you got cut off.
Well, I'm saying that these choices that we make for the quests could be opened up through maybe the social organizations that they have introduced during the Kickstarter.
Wasn't it? What were the
Thieves Guild or Merchants Guild?
Yeah.
They could offer different dialogues or options in completing said quests for all we know.
That would be
Now-
interesting.
Now, what was kind of cool, there's that corruption system in that they've been talking about, but I wonder if they're going to go like a Fable style or like a Star Wars style, where your the options you do in game will make you either darker or lighter. I wonder if they're going to have options in the quests, like if it's just going to be streamlined, you get the 10 chickens, bring them to the farmer, and that's it. Or you can bring the 10 chickens, you kill the farmer, take his wife, and take the chickens. Like I wonder if they're going to be doing stuff like that. That'd be kind of cool if they give you more variety, more options to do.
So you want them to do what Proxy was saying, having different options,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
within like the basis of a morale system, like Old Republic did.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think they did it really well. As far as actual questing, that's probably one of my favorite games just to play by myself. Like single player doing the questing, the way they approach that sort of like having different options to things. I mean, they kind of took it in the style of like a Dragon. Oh, goddamn, what's it called? Dragon
Age?
Yeah, Dragon Age. They kind of did it like in the style of that, where it's like, yeah, you have the different options for dialogue and different options during the questing, and everything affects your morale.
Mhm.
That would be really cool. Do something like that.
The question you have to ask though is how much do they value questing over end game? Because then they'll just be putting quests in to just push you to the max level because they focused all their development time on the end game is kind of like what a majority of players will be spending their time in anyway. So why spend too much time during the development of questing?
Well, it depends how long questing's going to take. I mean, if they do like Guild Wars style, where you just get to level 20 and you're good, like then fine. But if they want to have you slowly progress up to some extremely high level before you can even get to all the end game content that is the majority of what they've been talking about, like you want it to actually be substantial. Like you don't want to just run around and grind.
It comes down to the purpose of the questing. Like, is it just for experience, or is it tied to node development, or furthering your social organization path, or furthering your religion? They can tie it to other systems in the game, giving you purpose for the quests.
I think it's to present you the lore more than anything,
Absolutely.
and get you introduced to the game.
Perhaps, but then there's on the flip side of that, they have the narrative system, which takes players' decisions, choices, or quests they do, and produces a result on the majority of completion. So that should have an effect too. I also believe that the questing system is just one way of how to handle node progression. There should be other methods of doing it as well, like events, I believe. So players do have some freedom of a choice of how to approach node progression in some sense, which is a good idea.
Now, I have seen that some people have kicked around the idea of perhaps having players offer quests to other players. I know that idea's been kicked around by a few people. I kind of feel it'd be kind of a cool thing, for mercenary guilds, if, larger guilds that are not capable of expanding, or small guilds that may have a ton of money or a ton of resources wish to hire other guilds, if they could do quests of sort to offer them an actual formal contract, that'd be kind of cool. to have the possibility of doing something like that. But what do you guys feel about players being able to like offer rewards or and tangible, not so much experience. So it's not a like one guild is just buffing up another guild with experience with really cheap quests, but it'd be like resource type ones. What do you guys feel about stuff like that?
Like a contract system.
Yeah, like a contract system.
Dashboard.
Well,
Go ahead.
to say like EVE Online has a very fleshed out contract system, but it's one of those systems in EVE Online that never really gets used overly that much. Sometimes people offer good deals and such, but it's people tend to do direct trades instead, usually because it's much more efficient. And there's also with contractors usually because there's a certain like liabilities either on one side or the other that can lead to scamming, which could also be a potential issue, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. I've never heard of like players giving players other quests. Has that ever been a thing in MMOs?
Other than
Kinda
Eve?
was in WoW, because there were certain items that gave you quests when you clicked on them, and you could sell them on the auction house. But it's more like selling specific quests, not asking someone to go do it for you.
I guess having like the leader of the node like have quests of things that he needs done or like resources that need gathering, like it'd be pretty cool to have quests for people like the quests are actually benefiting the node that they're doing the quest for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, rather than a quest, I would see it be more useful for, say, like a trader wanting someone, you know, a full-time crafter that doesn't want to do PvE or anything like that, wants to sit in Nord all day, might consider sending some people out to do a dungeon or a dungeon run. I'm not sure about quests.
Yeah, it just sounds like a more of a collection task than a quest created by the player, which I'm all for. I don't think that that's a terrible idea to have a board and taverns that you can put up requests for certain items.
Well, it would be kind of cool if almost a contract or a bounty system. So let's say this guild has been harassing us and we need you to take out X amount of their members or something like that. It'd be kind of cool if that could happen. Of course, it wouldn't, you wouldn't go so far as, thousands of members. So then people are just, picking up these quests and just harassing, griefing the crap out of a guild. But like, if it was like, if you just went to war, you could maybe contract people on as mercenaries and give an actual mechanic to it. And that if they, by their performance in the guild war, they could be given rewards.
It could lead to exploitation, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I instantly think, well, if someone offered a system like that, I would literally go grief some sort of trading or gathering guild to hell and back, and then they would give me this, right? They'd put a contract on my guild, right?
Oh, so you're saying people...
And then I would just get an alt guild.
money.
I would just get the alt guild of whatever, or some friends, and then just have them kill each other until it satisfies the limit, Because
So,
there's
like,
no way to differentiate the kills, really, is there? In some sense.
I don't think there needs to be a mechanic for it. I think it could exist naturally if it exists at all. And since there's no mechanic for it, then it's not directly supported. And if it is exploitable, then it's more handled as a player's mistake for even trying something like that. It's not like mechanically a mistake.
Yeah.
So then, do we want to continue on questing, or do we want to start talking about dungeons?
Well, I had one more thing to say. I mean, so like, imagine you come in as a new player, you go into a town, and you see a bunch of exclamation points over actual player characters' heads, and say you go up to the blacksmith, and he's like, I need this steel to be able to make some sword. And it's like, that's a one-time only quest. That person who comes up and claims is the one who gets the quest. And then there's all these other people in the town that also need things done similar. Like they need someone to go out into the world and collect something for them. So that new player goes out, gets the steel, comes back, gets a reward from the blacksmith.
I mean, why can't people do that naturally anyway? I mean, wouldn't that take away from the social aspect of actually having to talk to people to some degree?
I think it would add to it, and I think it would give new players a way to actually benefit, like, in the world before they can actually, participate well because they're not leveled up.
Mhm.
Be interesting to see. I also think quests would be cool if they maybe changed depending on the season you are in. Or,
Well, I
you
do
know,
think they will do that because they talked about stuff like that. with
Yeah,
the-
there's very strong indications of season
Indication of
changes.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they
could affect a
God.
lot of things.
I found a bunch of I went on the website or whatever that had all of the links to Steven's quotes and stuff, and he did say there will be seasonally exclusive mechanics, so one can assume that there will be happenings in different of the seasons. So you're not going to be doing pumpkin harvesting in the spring or in the winter or something. It's gonna that's I think seasons are a big thing that can be really effective because it will make players have to choose when is the best time to siege, when is the best time to send out a caravan, stuff like that. I really like the season system because it changes up the game and makes people actually have to think. They no longer just, do. You pick up the game and, I know that it's always going to be sunny in this region or rainy in this region. That'd be kind of cool. But I also do hope that with the seasons, there's also different climates in the game, and the climates, winters and summers, are different too. So if there's a British Isles, it should be sunshiny all the time, right? So like I do hope that when they do the seasons, it's gonna be one part of the world could be all in snow, and then the other part could be in summer or fall or what have you. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Tropical
mechanic.
rainforest where it's raining all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Harvest Moon Online.
Yeah, Harvest Moon Online.
Waifus included.
Yeah, the waifus. Everyone here who's watching the stream, guess what? You get a waifu. You get a waifu.
They have a marriage system. How do you feel about NPC waifus?
You know what? You do bring up a big point, and we can talk about it later in the stream. Marriage, I think we do need to discuss because it's actually a curious mechanic. Because a few games have it, but only in small amounts.
I think
But,
it's super easy. Like,
yeah.
it's super simple. You just marry someone and you get a buff.
I don't think you get a buff. That makes it a must-have.
Well, not if it's like an irrelevant buff.
Just like you get more social points, and
Maybe
they're all...
positive and negatives. I mean,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Let's do that. Positive.
Yeah,
you get plus support, but like less freedom.
You go in, so you go into the local tavern and you actually get a debuff that's like you cannot cheat on your wife.
She gets to keep the freehold when you divorce.
Your wife sets up a quest for someone to come get you from the bar, get you back home.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
My drunk husband's back.
Yeah, and then you get like a summon that's just like the the idiot child or something comes up and he just gnaws on your enemy's leg or something. I don't know. I think Telltale said that he was wanting to talk about dungeons a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. I do want to bring up the elephant in the room with dungeons, and that's that at some point they made mention that they want to bring back the 40-man raid. I want to know how we feel on this.
There's
Bring
good
it on.
and bad ways to do it. I mean,
God, it's so broad and vague, dude.
well, I mean, it's such a broad topic. Like,
Yeah.
There's like 3 types of dungeons, so where do we start? Though I gotta say, with raiding and raiding in general, especially the 40-man dungeon aspect, when games start focusing on raiding content, that's all they seem to focus on lately. Like Final Fantasy XIV focuses very strongly on this raiding content, so does World of Warcraft. And I kind of feel like the other aspects of the game get heavily neglected because of that. And most people end up waiting and playing that game just for that raiding content. And I kind of have a negative appeal to some raiding content if it becomes the focus of the game, rather than just an aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. This game seems to be, it wants you to do everything, but it seems a lot of stuff goes back to PvP. And they want to make sure that, you know, you can avoid PvP, but it's going to be a big part of what this game is all about. And so, you know, it's, I really want, I want there to be that 40-man raids again, because I do think that, you know, there's a huge chunk of the of MMO gamers out there that all they do is PvE. They want to get the best gear, they want to grind for the best stuff, you know, and that's what they want out of a game. You know, I want that. I want raiding in the game because it is fun to be to go into a giant raid with all of your buddies, and maybe some randoms because you can fill in all those spots, and just like have a fun time in a raid. But at the same time, like you said, Proxy, is, you know, when you have raiding in a game, you either make it the focus of endgame content, or it becomes a sideshow, like kind of just it isn't a big pull. That's, you know, you either got to make it the only thing you do in game, or it's not strong enough to support itself, and people will get bored on it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with dungeons, though, I mean, since everything's open world, I've been wondering if, you know, these dungeons are gonna just be constant revolving doors of, you know, bosses and stuff will spawn over and over every 5 minutes, or if it's gonna be like, you know, the timer on the dungeon starts when one group enters into it, like kind of like a tripwire type of thing. So
not everything is open world. They've said previously that there is open world dungeons, there's instance dungeons, and there's raiding dungeons. There's the 3 types in total.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have the open world aspect, then you'll have the 8-man. I think they said the 8-man, was it Cam? 8-man, I'm pretty sure, and then the raiding.
So because it allows every single class to have a type of role in the group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, it would be fun, and who knows, maybe some of these world bosses that pop up, you know, that will be one-time kills, maybe those will be the raids that people are looking for, you know, to go out and monster hunt against these, you know, dragons or what have you that pop up on the countryside destroying a node. Maybe that's what will happen to really pull in the raid aspect, you know, go hunt down dragons. So,
well, maybe certain raids are only opened up via getting a node to a metropolis level or something along those lines. So it's possible that servers don't all have access to the same dungeons and raids as other servers because their nodes have developed in a different way.
Yeah. Now, I know they showed a tiny bit of one of the dungeons they've been working on, and to be honest, I thought it was really beautiful looking. However, it didn't have a linear design. It was branched off, and I don't know if that's just kind of they put this together and this is what they came up with, or if that's what we're going to expect for dungeons, that, you know, there'll be different pathways in the dungeon and they could all lead to dead ends and stuff like that. I'm kind of curious about that.
I think that's really hard to predict right now, because this is just something they threw together to show us what a dungeon could look like, potentially.
Everything's a placeholder.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a placeholder. I know that, you know, but
everything's a placeholder.
If we're speculating based on like what we personally want, I'd really hope they don't have too much branching off in the dead ends and stuff, because I mean, there's a lot of games where you go in the dungeons and you can just get lost trying to find where you're actually supposed to go.
I
mean,
do want that. I want that
You do
in
wanna get
open
lost?
world dungeons. I want that in open
Okay.
world dungeons, but not in instance dungeons, because I think instance
Mhm.
dungeons are like it's kind of supposed to be linear, and you're supposed to make it to the end and complete it, get the final boss, get your loot, and get out.
Yeah.
But in an open world dungeon, you are in part exploring the world, so
It-
you should get lost. And getting lost might lead you to finding things that you didn't know existed there before.
hmm It would be kind of funny though if you got lost in a dungeon and you just gave up trying to get out. You're like, I've been here since launch, and it's 2 years out. This is my home now. Just- but like, yeah, like I remember, this isn't an MMO, but I remember back playing Halo 1 way back in the day. I remember those flood levels. They were terrifying. And I remember getting lost, and the floods coming in on you. It'd be kind of cool if, you get lost in the dungeons and the mobs start coming around and keep trying to come at you. Like that'd be kind of a cool mechanic in them if they made them confusing, and that would be fun. That I think would be an interesting way to make dungeons more appealing to people, because like you said, you find the hidden things in the dungeon. You get a different story, different trek inside of it each time.
Be
Yeah, I
interesting
mean,
to see. Yeah.
You never see like a giant labyrinth, for example. You
Mm-hmm.
see labyrinth in MMOs, but often like they're very linear. For a labyrinth.
Yeah.
It's probably like a corridor,
like-
almost like a Halo game or something.
Yeah.
There's very few like changing walls and disappearing entrances. Like if you look at the film like Labyrinth, the Jim Henson one with
Yeah.
David Bowie. Was it John Bowie? Yeah, David Bowie, was it?
Yeah, David.
Bowie, yeah. The entrances would change to be like mini quests or events within the dungeon itself that occurred naturally. If they had something like that in an MMO that was so big and expansive, and occasionally you'd run into another group and might have to fight and have grind spots and make it a massive, extensive part of the world that is just confusing to get lost in, like an old city, they could perhaps do because of the lore setting.
Definitely an interesting idea.
Well, like, we don't know much about the Talnar, but, what if some of the Talnar cities, like, maybe some destroyed cities are kind of that way? Like, you have to get through it to find this, like, boss underneath the ground or something like that, and you have to go in and really work your way through, and that'd be kind of cool, kind of fun to, have, like, when you're experiencing everything and trying to find stuff, it dead ends galore, and who knows, there'll be dead skeletons in there carrying lore books or something for all of the
Yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah.
an old forgotten civilization. You go into their city and you've got to uncover stuff about their lore, like while you're doing this dungeon.
Especially if it's something that's could be magically change elements of it being completely different the next time you go through it or enter it, and especially if it's open world as well, be also quite interesting. But the fact, like, if you had
Changes with
something like
seasons.
that, it'd be very hard to do a guide for it. You could have a general principle guide for it, but you wouldn't be able to make a solid guide, and people could just follow. With raid dungeons, everything becomes scripted, everything becomes easy to follow. You can add add-ons to make it so trivially easy that you're basically playing Dance Dance Revolution, bashing the buttons. Then you're done with the dungeon. You never have to do it again, kind of thing. You got the loot from it, and then it's rinse repeat. You have it on farm status. But if you have a dungeon that changes, is procedural and is different every time you do elements of it or go through it, then you've created like a meta dungeon almost that has a very replayability to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dungeons could be affected by seasons once again, or node level, so they could change over time for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to see. Maybe even group composition could affect how you go about going through a dungeon.
Yeah.
If you don't have all 8, you might miss out on certain things. Maybe like a switch that's up on a wall that only rogues can parkour their way up to, or something like that.
I absolutely love the idea of players becoming like a certain necessity to get to certain parts of the world. Like you're right,
Mhm.
like a rogue that can like scale a wall and then pull a switch, or like a mage that can like blast apart a enchanted door, or
Mhm.
just
Yep.
random shit. I just
I
love
do
it.
wonder how effective that would be if suddenly the rogue goes randomly AFK.
Oh god.
You know, you're traveling through a
True rogue
dungeon,
fashion.
and you're like, Steve, can you go grab Steve? Steve?
And then
Shit.
the monsters start appearing, and you're like, Steve, no!
And you gotta like spend 13 minutes looking for some other guy to come to the dungeon, and then you
Yeah.
can't find anyone. So like, dude, can someone go respec, like pick up an archetype or something, or can you log in with your ult?
Has there been any MMOs that offer that type of thing though yet? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you know,
I guess old school World of Warcraft had things like the trank shots from hunters that required you to have specific class to use specific moves.
Old
Mhm.
I don't
school
think there's been
WoW.
I don't think there's been environmental elements that have been
Yes.
designed by the game. I think there's been like some elements where like you need a mage to do this or you need a thing to do this, but no actual environmental elements that require you to have a class.
Non-environmental, but in WoW you did have certain bosses that were like there was the sludge boss in Encourage where he couldn't be killed unless you had frost mages freeze him.
Mm-hmm. And there was the one in what's it called, the first expansion, Burning Crusade.
Yeah,
The one you had to banish the water elementals. Oh, I forgot the name of the boss.
I know which boss you're talking about.
Yeah, you need the warlocks to keep banishing the little water things.
Mhm.
So there's been requirements like that, but I don't think there's ever been a dependency on having to have like a rogue climb up a wall, or a mage disarm an explosive, or a rogue to find a trap, or
yeah.
a scout to find a way, or a mage to summon the barrier. No, I don't think that's been particularly done in a game like that before.
Well, it would be kind of cool if you had like I don't know, like a mage or even like a summoner of some sort, if they could create like a ramp or something to get up to a higher spot or something like that. If that was, you know, a mechanic in game, that
Now
could
you're
be.
like helping the whole group proceed.
Yeah.
It's a very Dungeons and Dragons thing, you know. It really
It
is
is.
like, yeah, because you go through a dungeon and you know,
Utility skills.
yeah, it's not just utility skills. I mean, I wonder if there'll be elements, for example, you know, we've had like puzzles before in my DM teams. You know, you've got like 3 ropes and a drop, and you're trying to figure out how to get the Goliath down because he weighs a ton and probably snap the ropes. So you have to come up with like a load of crazy schemes on how to get this giant monstrosity down a tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. You know.
Yeah.
So maybe like I feel like Andrew was kind of touching on this, but maybe like certain roles would be able to create a shortcut through something rather than get through an impasse.
Oh, yep. So like with this role, you could necessarily just skip this entire section, but if you didn't have it, you could still get around to that area. It'd just be much more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
That would be more, a better approach. For example, like, you know, if you had a rogue, you get to this extra area or a hidden area that had more loots, but necessarily not required to do the run, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and like, you know, the small things like dispersing the poison, or like a finding where the like invisible stones are in the water to cross the river, you know, those things are kind of cool. Yeah, I think that if they do the dungeons correctly, I really think they can offer a lot of replayability that most MMOs miss out on, because it's just old mechanic after old mechanic and stuff. But at the same time, I also don't hope that they'd go so far into class specific talents that you need to complete dungeons, because in that option, as you're joking before, Proxy, about, you know, the player versus egos and stuff, you know,
All right.
then you have to have specifically this style of rogue or this style of summoner to be able to run with us, because we need that to open up door A and B, you know, and I think that would almost inhibit player creativity, inhibit player use. So then players can't play what they actually enjoy. They'd have to fit into a certain role within it.
Well, there's always the idea that the the class required areas in a dungeon are completely optional. Like they lead to optional bosses, so you could get optional loot, but you could still very easily
Exactly.
complete the dungeon with just any group of your best friends, no matter what classes they are.
I mean,
Basically, you get more from it.
Yes.
look at any good RPG where it's like you can literally bypass things by hacking into a computer or something to go around something versus like you just put all of your points into strength and you just power through everything. Like you'd have both the options. One's going to be like possibly more beneficial, possibly, allow you to get more things from it, but at the same time you might be detrimenting yourself going into something that's so niche because you wouldn't have all the brute force to just power through like you normally would be able to.
Yeah.
So you'd kind of be relying on those niche roles to be able to get through the dungeon. Is what I would hope if they did it right.
I think that they could also do a lot with maybe tying the gathering professions. Like it'd be cool to see you kind of have to coordinate having a couple different gatherers come through to get the most out of the dungeon. Maybe like a skinner for certain mobs to get leathers. Maybe there's some mining nodes down there. You have to have a miner with you to take full advantage of that. You could still do the run, but there's some rare resources in said dungeon or raid that requires a gatherer profession to take advantage of.
Well, I just kind of thought of this just now. What if they had citizen instance nodes? So, I mean, instance dungeons. So, like, imagine this: you're part of this node, and there's this dungeon that pops up. Giant behemoth dragon or colossus or something is in this dungeon. You need to kill it, or it harms your node every 7 days or something like that. And is your node as a whole has to work to just finish this dungeon, and as far as your citizens get, the progress is saved in the dungeon type of thing. That'd be kind of cool to me.
Sounds like more of a world event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a long-term dungeon like world event I'm talking about. Where it's not just like a one-off, like this would take a while to complete, but it would be specific for your nodes to make it so players are staying in their nodes and helping grow their nodes and stuff. I think that'd be kind of cool mechanic in the game.
You mean they dug too deep and awakened the dragon?
They dug too deep and awakened the dragon, or other evils that may lie beneath.
Too greedily and too deep.
The mother-in-law.
Yeah, the mother-in-law. Oh God, marriage. We do need to think about that.
Yeah, that waifu marriage. Just completely forgot about her. Dug her up.
To touch on the thing that Cam was talking about with crafters going through dungeons, I mean, that could be to tie in with what we talked about earlier, questing. That could be a very legitimate quest. The way to do a quest is to have an escort. I know, like in a lot of single-player games, escort quests are probably the most annoying pieces of crap you can play, simply because the AI is ridiculously stupid. But if you had a player controlling the person you're escorting and just, perhaps gave him like full aggro, a little dwarf miner, just give him full aggro during the dungeon, and you have to keep all the mobs off him, regardless of your
like
tank
an
trying
MVP type of thing, or
make him like the MVP through the dungeon and have to keep him safe and make it particularly difficult to do that. And that could be an interesting approach to questing and dungeoning at the same time.
I want to see like this little dwarf carrying like this giant bag of gold, and he can't fight, but he's like trying to run as fast as he can while everything's trying to kill him, and everyone else.
Yeah.
And every time he gets hit, coins fall out the back.
Oh,
no.
My God!
Like depending on how well you do, the more money you get, right?
Yeah.
Why can't you just stuff the gold in his bottomless pockets? Come on,
Bag of holding, right?
Yeah, I know.
My ether pockets.
That is a cool idea. I like that idea of if perhaps people needed escort protection things from in dungeons, like if this guy wanted to mine but he knows it's in a dungeon or something, you could hire other players. That'd be kind of cool. I don't
That would be
know.
really cool. And I mean that ties into what I was saying earlier of like, you know, characters or what everybody was saying earlier of characters giving quests, and it's like, I mean, and then like a node quest set by like the leader of a node, like say there's some squad out there that's like a group of like 40 guys that are just, you know, a ragtag bunch of hooligans that come in and steal your crops every once in a while. And so you set a node quest for any mercenaries that want to come in and take the quest, they can go in and, you know, try and stop those people, and it progresses as you kill more and more of them, and eventually they die off or something and have to relocate.
Say any though, the only question when you have quests and PvP, there's always opportunity to exploit it. Always. Say once again in that situation, I would just take the quest and then use an old guild, and same situation that crops up. You know,
You're saying system, but it's a nice idea.
The only way you're saying that you think that player given quests would work is if they're on a PvE side.
Yeah, generally, like as soon as you go into the player element, there's always a huge opportunity. Same with arenas, you know.
Yeah.
I would love if human nature would allow people to do arenas and betting and make it legitimate. But unfortunately, human nature always speaks opposite of that, and you'll always have people fixing fights and trying to get the one up, you know.
I think quests along the lines of like, hey, we need 500 stone or whatever to upgrade this building to the next level. That's probably something that would be, you know.
That'd be actually a better way to do it. If you wanted to make a player quest, you'd have to make it so that it was a resource they'd have to bring back to town, and there'd be opportunity for people to steal it off them. It would be something still PvE related, but still an opportunity for PvP. But directly a PvP related quest, especially based on kills or killing of other players, will always be exploited.
Well, I didn't want to get into this, but I think with the nature of the game, there's always going to be the problem of anybody can kill anybody at any time. Like people that are questing and stuff are going to be killing each other just for like menial tasks. People like just all the time just going to be fucking slaughtering each other. I don't really see a means to escape from that chaos in that early grind stage of just constant ganking.
That's fine. I love that stuff. That's great. Especially in the game I rush for that. Yeah, when you have a quest assigned with it and you need to kill X amount of players, then and anything like that is always exploitable. Fortunately, it'd be cool. It really would be cool, but yeah.
But I mean, like with the world quests and stuff, like at any time, you know, you're right at the end of the quest, some other group comes in and steals it from you, or you know, just messes you up and leaves, doesn't even bother with it.
I love that stuff, especially when it's like fights over world bosses. I particularly love a lot because sometimes you can spend hours trying to kill that raid boss and no one ever kills it because you've PvP'd for like 3 weeks straight over this one raid boss, you know. For example, one of my favorite features, Arcade, illegal tree farms. I couldn't get enough of that. I was very sad when they decided to put the Thunderstruck tree on the cash shop, you know. I was devastated because it literally killed illegal tree farms overnight, you know.
Yeah. I think people are going to complain about that type of stuff, but at the same time, it's like you can't have this type of game without it.
I remember being in WoW on the Timeless Isle because they put a raid boss right in the middle of, and I was on so it was a world boss, but it was also, I played on a PvP server. So the moment we would start the raid boss, like Horde would come out of nowhere and just start picking us off while we were trying to defeat the raid boss, just like out of nowhere. And it made it an interesting challenge to try and complete each time.
Yeah, absolutely. That mix of PvE and PvP, if done correctly.
Wasn't Booty Bay like always PvP?
Yeah, it was, but with guards, so it kind of got stupid sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh god, those Stormwind and Ogremar sieges were always just the most fun.
Yeah, and then they added, was it Altric Valley and everyone Battlegrounds. That's another thing I don't like is Battlegrounds. I think they were. So, that's one thing I don't like actually is adding arenas and Battlegrounds, and I think that's a mistake in some ways. I think
No, are they though? They're smaller though. Like
they said there was a mention of a 15 versus 15.
Oh
and,
no, I think
Yeah.
I think their idea is I think metropolises should be the only ones, or level 4 military and a level 5 metropolis should be the only one to have it, and it should be a coliseum that people have to sign up for to go into it. I think that'd be kind of cool if they had a system like that, where it was like a gladiatorial arena. But I don't think they should have like a queue system where they just pop into the instance and they're like, we're randomly fighting in this random valley for no reason other than you have to die and I have to live.
Yeah, I really hate that. It does detract from open world PvP. They said it doesn't, but I feel it really does.
No,
I mean,
I
like
guarantee you it does.
yeah,
It's-
like Terran Mill, and there was a South Shore. The fights between that vanilla were great, and then you had like in Arcade, I had an issue with my guild. Like we used to go out and steal ships and everything like that all day long, pirating and PvP wherever we could as a pirate guild, Free Ditch, for example. But then it got to the point where people were like, no, I just want to spam arena. I want to do my 1v1s. I don't really. And then it just literally became that after a while, just people spamming the 1v1 queue, and it was really hard to get people out in the world. And then we went out in the world, hardly anyone was in there because everyone was queuing up for the arena,
Yeah.
All wanting to be like Kun Kun, from the streams.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think. I really think they need to have, if they are going to have arenas, they need to be in a coliseum in these cities, so then people can watch them, people can place bets on them, stuff like that. That would be a cool mechanic to have in the game.
So
Arenas don't have them in because they take away from the world PvP. I think they really actually segregate the PvPers and make you have. You have world PvPers and then you have arena PvPers, if that makes sense.
So, Anduin, you're saying that there should be people who like own gladiators and stuff. Like there's people who own an arena or whatever, like different gladiator owners that come in with their gladiators into a town, and then they fight in that town's arena against that owner's gladiators, and for like everybody's entertainment.
I wasn't
I think
saying
that'd
that,
be cool.
but that would be a cool mechanic if you had gladiator guilds that all they did was just come into towns. People would have to pay like I don't know, like a service charge to watch them, and they'd get a cool seeing, and then by paying the service charge or the door cost to get in, you get like a buff, perhaps some random stat buff just for watching this for X amount of minutes or something like that.
So rather than slaves, they're like mercenary type gladiators.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be cool.
I think that would be kind of
it's an interesting idea. I don't see it.
No, I don't see it getting in there, but I think that'd be a good way to get a good balance.
Especially the betting.
Yeah,
that's right for.
I think here's an idea for arena combat: is what if only one group could do it at a time? So like,
what do you mean?
So if it was, so let's say you have like this PvP battleground, and it's like 15 versus 15. That's the total amount of people on that server that can go into the battleground.
So everybody has to gather and watch.
Everyone has to gather and watch, or if you want to go into the battleground, you go into a queue, and then you have to wait for that group to finish before you can go in. So it's not easily spammable to
like
the point
a
where it's
tournament
taking
type of
away.
thing?
Yeah, it's like almost like a tournament, but it's not easily spammable, so it doesn't take away from the world PvP. You might be able to do it occasionally, but who the hell wants to sit in a line for 30 minutes just to do one battleground every so often?
Well, yeah, but then you've got all the people sitting there waiting to get in the battleground that are just sitting there killing each other.
That's the thing, like it's
like you've got a
instant
15 on 15, but then right next to that you've got a fucking 100 versus 100 fight going on between all the people waiting.
Sure. But the point is,
it's instant PvP, like you just click a button, boom, you got PvP. Why go looking for it?
Instance, I think would definitely be best.
Well, what if much as it's instance, what if you still have to go to the place in the world where you would go to the battleground to like queue up for it?
So maybe like instance, but you can't join in unless you're a part of it.
Well, yeah, that's what the whole Coliseum idea would be, is that people would have to sign up to get in on it, and perhaps maybe it wouldn't be 24/7 thing. Maybe people would have to actually set up tournaments for this thing. That'd be kind of a cool system, in to actually have that be a mechanic. But I don't know.
You could, rather than mechanic, you could just organize that technically yourself. There's no
Yeah.
people do
Yeah.
that in PDO all the
Just
time.
put-
There's no.
Just put the Coliseum in the game. Don't have any systems attached to it. Let the players do what they want with it. Organize
Oh,
their
that would-
tournaments.
The Coliseum. Okay.
Yeah.
Like tournaments and shit.
Just have it in the military node. That's the military node's big thing, or one of them.
Yeah, if people had to organize it themselves, events and tourneys and like that, it probably wouldn't deter so much from the open world PvP as an instant queuing one would do.
Oh,
It's just like having a dungeon queue, something I don't personally want to see. I used to like the days where you go out, literally adventure your way all the way to the dungeon, do the dungeon, maybe a couple times even, and then come back. Depending on your inventory.
Was there anything else y'all had to add on that subject?
What subject are we on again?
Well,
Where
we were on PvE dungeons, but
we
we've
have-
got
oh shit, we
far
actually are.
sidetracked from that. Right
we have
now,
been going for
I
an
think
hour. I should
I
update.
think we're on the Coliseum. Does anybody have opinions on the Coliseum?
We already stated opinions
Okay.
on that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
quick update. We have been going for an hour now. So, I'll leave it to
Well-
vote if we want to keep going or if we want to conclude it.
Well, I
I
think
don't-
we were
I don't have a problem
gonna do
going
hour
till
and a half.
hour and a half.
Okay.
5 more hours? Okay, got it.
5 more hours.
5 more hours.
Yeah,
In-depth
yeah.
conversation.
Actually, all of you viewers, we're actually
doing a marathon.
we're doing a marathon.
24 hours straight
I'm
talking.
skipping- Skipping class,
It's
calling
skipping-
in for work.
It's, we have real life is dead to me.
What's work?
Yeah, what is
This is your life now.
yeah,
if
this
you want to
is-
go ahead and go to the next topic, Crow.
Yeah, let's talk about trading.
trading. So I don't know. I think there's a problem that we've been having is there we go. I think that a lot of people like that whole auction house, but I do like the idea that everything's regionalized. I think it really adds to the immersion in the game. That we're not going to have to, you actually have to travel to get cheaper deals. I like that. I like the idea of, one node may have really cheap steel, but another may have like expensive steel. I like the idea that everything's regionalized, where if you have a giant auction house, I think it does one of two things. It either makes things go through the roof in price or it drops it through the ground. So,
It makes
So,
monopolies a lot worse.
yep.
Are you
And botting easier too. Like the Chinese bots manipulating
Oh,
the
yes,
auction house.
are you saying there should still be auction houses, but it be
I-
node based?
I
Like,
think yes,
or-
auction houses, I guess, regionalized. So I like what their idea of the economic nodes maybe having an auction house in there for the surrounding nodes. That's cool. And perhaps even just an auction house for the inside the node itself. Maybe that would be kind of cool.
Or maybe
But-
an auction house that works like an auction house.
Yeah. that you actually have a player, an NPC that goes up there and says, well, this is being sold for this, and people have to bid on it. That'd be kind of cool. Or buy it out.
Going once, going twice, sold to the man over there with the hairy beard.
Yes,
I'll fucking
exactly.
die if I could have that. I would love that so much. I would just
But-
I'll throw all my gold at that just to hear him shout my name.
The thing is like with just like the static auction house is that it kills trading. Like trading in general dies a horrible death, and then you have armies of people just surrounding this one NPC, and all day they'll buy, they'll sell. Not just like the Chinese bots, but players will do this, just buy, sell stuff all day, and that becomes the game. Whereas, like in a game like EVE Online, you would constantly have the regional hubs, so you have people shipping stuff back and forth because they'll get a better price here by shipping this here. It keeps the caravans running. It keeps the freighters running back and forth all day long. So I'm all for the regionalized things. It keeps the world alive. It keeps people doing stuff, actually playing in the game rather than just stood up to a UI interface clicking buttons.
Well, and that's something I've been wondering with the regional build. I'm wondering if it's going to also be with armor and stuff. So, like, one guild or one part of the world, those players may have better armor than another part of the world. I wonder if they're going to do it with that, or if it's strictly going to be lumber and stuff like to build up nodes and stuff.
It's grid based. I actually have an answer for that one. So, yeah, for example, like one node will be facilitating for changing iron. So you'll need to move iron to another node because that node has the facilities to turn that iron into ingots, for example.
Oh, okay.
Whereas a village node probably wouldn't have the facility to do that, right? So then you need to send these stuff to a town, and then you need to send your materials from that place to another place to craft grade 3 armor. But if you wanted to craft grade 4, you'd have to send it even further away again. So, the distance travels equals the better the grade of the armor.
That's amazing.
And will you have to make node agreements? Like, will the leaders of nodes have to agree to a trade agreement to even start caravans?
No, this is all player level stuff as far as I'm aware. Only caravans I'm aware that are affected by node decisions are the ones that you need to advance the node specifically.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm aware, there could be some changes on some details, like everything's subject to change. But that's as far as I'm aware, that's how it operates.
So basically, it's not based on player skill; it's based on the location of where everything is. Like
you'll have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and tier 6 nodes essentially.
So what you're kind of saying is like a dwarven node could be really good at smithing, really good at making weapons, making plate armor, stuff like that, but they lack the ability to do woodworking.
I think it's more to do with the level of the node.
Okay.
Because like an encampment's not going to have the facilities to process iron. There's going to be no blacksmith in an encampment, for example. They probably have good facilities for dealing with leather, maybe skinning stuff, but not so much for the higher tier stuff,
So, with the caravans, I've been wondering is, of course, the caravans will have a huge number of raw material on them and stuff, or even, forged material. But I really wonder, how much can a player carry of raw material, or if you need to have the caravans move stuff. That's been a concern of mine, because I mean, if you're just a random miner out in the far off hills or something, and you've been mining all day, do you need to have a caravan to bring everything back? Do you get to have a wagon follow you behind while you're doing your mining and stuff?
I can answer that too. If you look in game information on the Ashes Discord, there's a picture of a camel reindeer mount, which is kind of like
a mule.
Mm-hmm. That will help you get shipments back, but because of the distance traveled, often or not you'll have to use a caravan to move stuff between towns because of the sheer weight of it.
Yeah, okay, so they're going to kind of like a BDO type of thing?
Almost,
okay.
Yeah. Kind of like that, and like a mix between that and Arcade, I guess, if you wanted to compare.
Gotcha.
I mean, more something.
It wouldn't just be raw materials, because I mean there would also be like lots of already crafted things that would be getting shipped
ingots will need to be sent across. Processed like things like paper and things like that would also need to be sent.
Mm-hmm.
Or even swords and armor, I would assume.
I don't know if swords and armor need to be shipped like that. I don't know. I know the processed and the raw needs to be shipped. I'm not sure about end result items.
That's just such a cool mechanic.
Because if swords don't drop, but stuff drops from caravans when you destroy them, to me, logically, it'd be much more smart to just walk with a sword, especially if it's an extremely rare one or expensive one.
Especially
use it on death.
unless you can't carry like nearly as much.
Yeah.
It just depends how the inventory system. How much have they talked about the inventory system?
Not huge amounts. It's going to have weight
Weight, from
limitation
what I
and
understand, yeah.
like item limitation, I believe. I don't know anything other than that.
Because I would assume it'd be a lot more. It'd be a lot easier to carry all that stuff in a caravan, or yeah.
Weight
Well,
limitation is
if they're-
interesting.
If you're gonna guard a caravan, it would be kind of wise to maybe load up guards as well along the way, just to bring as much
probably
as
have
possible. But
Fucking army surrounding that shit.
yeah, but that opens up the possibility that any guard that's killed drops some stuff as well.
Hmm.
Like any of your fellow guild members who are guarding your caravan may end up dropping some of the iron ingots that you would be having in the caravan. There's a
Well,
lot to work out with that.
When the caravan's destroyed, I know that they don't drop the actual resources. They drop certificates, which you then redeem at the original node for those resources. So you don't have to worry, as an attacker, you don't have to worry about the carry weight.
ah,
But
See,
you won't,
that's better, yeah.
yeah,
makes
because
sense.
it's designed like that. Otherwise, you'd be able to just like wait to the end of the journey, kill them, and hand it into the next node, right? But because of that system, to move that resources at that node, the attacker would then have to move those resources out of that node eventually.
It's a smart way of doing it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do we have anything else we want to say on trading?
I mean, there's quite a few aspects. There's like the stock market
There's a
as well,
ton of
isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about the stock market.
Yeah, the stock market.
Stretch
Oh my
goal.
goodness.
Everyone always forgets about stuff.
The most disappointing stretch goal.
Yeah. I was like, oh, new race 2.5. Oh man, what's coming? Oh, stock
Sub
market.
games and
Like,
cats
I
and
was predicting
armor
like
and
sky nodes, space nodes.
then it's stock markets and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, I get.
So
bugged
Yes.
what is an MMO stock market? Because I think the only one we have is the one in Eve, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
Something-
maybe not. I think there's been, I guess to some degree, you could kind of say Arcade had the price fluctuations, but two of the trade backs, with the hand-ins, they were kind of like a stock market, but not really.
I mean, that's like an auction house, like
Yeah.
items fluctuating.
Well,
Stock market would be more like you buy into someone. Like if there's a trader, he could sell stock, and you'd buy into it.
I think
and
there has been other
your
games.
stock would go
I
up or
think
down.
most of them have been space games generally. Like I think I've played a few of them before, but I can't even remember their names. Where you had price values and you had to move X to B for the sale. But I don't think there's been any more medievalish or more fantasy oriented games with the stock market.
So then how is it going to work? I'm just gonna throw that out because I have no fucking idea how a stock market works.
I think the thing about it is we don't really know how many things in the game are going to be profitable. Like maybe you could buy stock in a mercenary network, or maybe that's black market. Maybe it's going to be all like just different vendors that you're buying stock into, and I don't know if those vendors are going to be like a part of like almost like a corporation thing. Like they're all under one guy who manages multiple vendors, and then you buy stock into like the quote unquote company. And then it's like it's hard to know all of what's going to be profitable because the only things I can think of are different vendors and mercenaries.
Well, EVE Online, you had the corporations, obviously,
so
like the
guilds
bigger
basically,
ones.
right?
Yeah, pretty much guilds.
So how do you invest in guilds?
Well, in
Basically-
EVE, like you bought like a percentage of the guild ownership, so you could sell like shares off of your corporation and the taxed profits. And you could actually literally steal a guild off someone by buying the majority shares of their guild, which is pretty interesting mechanic.
We
Yeah,
are a
that makes a
publicly
lot of
traded guild.
Up kill on the server and buy all the stocks in it.
Yeah,
How did you make all your money? Commodities.
Yeah, I sold my guild for a nice profit.
Made a killing on the coal commodities.
Yeah, Jesus.
Made my fortune.
I mean, I think that economic warfare is one way to do it, but at the same time, Proxy, how often was that kind of almost the worst kind of griefing? I think that would actually terrify
And
some.
if there was systems like that in Ashes, especially if, for example, I know people can own taverns and shops and buildings, right? We know that, right? So if people can sell shares of their business in game, it could be a scary concept for people to manipulate, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's like if you spend X amount of time on this thing, and then suddenly there's some large guild that just wants to be a bunch of dicks comes in and buys all the shares. I mean, that would really, I think that would actually turn people away heavily, because I mean, people could do that very easily in a malicious way, and that would really, I think, harm a lot of people's views of the game.
Not to mention, games are generally designed that all players always make a positive income. No one's ever making huge amounts of debts in these games, really. And without debt, it means that any player sort of stock market would be heavily superinflated, most likely, with no destruction of currency. So I find that it would basically a system where the rich would definitely get richer if it was a player stock market. But if the stock market was just based on NPCs and, that, I could see it being more viable and less abusive to the economy in general.
I can't wait for like 2 years in, and it'll be like, you guys remember the server before the stock market crash? I could afford a sword for a good fucking week's worth.
It's like a Mad Max. Mad Max, everyone's wearing shitty armor, and we're just fighting.
Recession hits, you gotta buy the cheap potions.
Yeah. They have a 50% chance of turning you into a frog or something.
They're pumping money into
the Walmart potions made with the cheapest ingredients.
The 5 biggest guilds on the server are in desperate need of cash flow. We as the developers have decided to give 80 million gold to each of them.
People are having to sell off their NPC wives or services into
the
waifu.
Oh god, yeah.
I'll let you. I'll contract you to use my wife for a week while I.
Who runs Barter Town? Master Blaster runs Barter Town. Oh god. Yeah, I think
that'd be a fun shoot with like the node started to regress too. Like a metropolis, instead of like having houses that are nice and clean looking, they all turn into like slums, like a massive slum, just city slum.
And then everyone knows economic instability leads to fascism, so now we have fascist guilds.
Oh Jesus!
Oh good God! Don't we already have fascist guilds? Okay,
the one true God is.
Did someone say enclave? What?
Oh God!
What was the?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Taxes. Shothi brought up something in the
that's right.
Oh god, taxes.
That's a good subject change too.
Yeah, but we can't escape them. Even in the gaming world, they're bringing taxes to us.
Do you have your W-2?
Yeah. At the end of the thing, you don't fill out your W-2. You lose your freehold.
Do you have 2 forms of guild identification?
I wonder if it's to be like a game mechanic where mayors would be allowed to embezzle money somehow.
Oh my god! And you can actually impeach them.
Game mimicking the real world.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You can raise taxes during sieges, but I'm wondering if it's going to be like during their term. They can raise taxes.
Do we control taxes?
I can see it now. We need to raise taxes during the siege, and then the siege comes and like, hey mayor, where's all the defenses? And then just nothing's been bought.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm imagining. I'm imagining like fucking Star Wars with I am the Senate. Like expansion of powers and shit, and it comes out that he just bought a mercenary force to defend his own freeholds and shit. Like,
well, the crazy thing is, it's like you've got this whole economy that's like based on medieval times, but then at the same time, it's like you've got tons of modern concepts thrown into the mix. So it's interesting how that's going to play out. Like they didn't have stock back then and shit, so it's like
I thought they did.
And like as
Little
far
bit,
as
too.
not just the economy, but also government, like we've got more modern concepts in government as well. So it's like you've got this interesting mix of like how the old is going to conflict with the new.
Well, I do
It'd be
kind of
interesting how they
wonder.
balance it.
I wonder how taxes will work. Will you have to mail them in, or
Yeah.
or will you have to bring a giant like caravan load of gold into town to deposit it in the
Personally,
bank or something?
I think it'd be like sales tax essentially. Like
No.
stalls in the town, a percentage of it just goes boop right to the node bank or whatever they're gonna store the money in.
I gotta say, if embezzlement is a thing for mayors or even government
Yeah, yeah.
officials, military nodes are going to be a shit fest because there's no way to control who gets, because it's just, who's the best PvPer, right? Essentially.
Well,
Yeah.
in
It
Reed,
depends on
though, then people are going to abandon the node. If you think about it, if you have a shitty guild that's leading this shitty node and they're just taking everyone's money, they're
Yeah,
going to just move. You know?
But why would the mayor care? He's already embezzled all the money. He's already destroyed the node, right? So then he
Well,
just
what
goes
if-
to the next military mode, wins the PvP competition there, boom, he's mayor again, right?
I do hope that there's going to be multiple positions in each city, though. I do hope there's going to be like a police
Believe there
captain.
was-
Checks and balances.
Yeah.
Checks and balances, yes. So there's like, it would be cool if they did have like the people's court like in
I
the
like-
game.
I like
Good,
what
good.
Shothi brings up here is like you can RP as a tax agent and rock up
Oh,
someone's freehold.
It's like we actually have to close down your freehold now. The bank owns.
Oh man, player juries. I think the concept of player juries was good, but in Arcade everyone was just, guilty.
Dick. Yeah,
Guilty, off with his head.
Guilty.
It's-
Guilty.
All I'm imagining is the goddamn town of Salem. Just like as soon as people start turning on each other, it's awful.
I mean, you've got a jury of your peers that don't give a shit.
Yeah, basically. That's the problem with player like anything with player interaction in that degree is they will just screw you over for the shits and giggles. You could have a legitimate reason why your business is failing, or you couldn't meet the tax bracket, or you didn't pay your tax for whatever reason. Nope, guilty. Doesn't matter.
You can't relate to that guy when you're
You're out on the street, your
anonymous.
children are starving to death. They don't care.
Well,
Your wife who's alone.
Your
Right.
wife is alone.
I do hope though that they do have a lot of different roles in it, War Master, stuff like that. Because for circumstances like this, what if the mayor is embezzling funds? What if he's just an awful mayor? You should be able to have like a police captain or a judge to come in and be like, "You're fired," and take over with emergency power or something like that. That'd be kind of
It should allow for rebellions. I think a rebellion would be much more fun.
well, yeah,
Yes.
that would be a cool concept, but at the same time, then what would stop a large, powerful guild from suddenly saying, "Hey guys, next week we're gonna all become citizens of this other node and just fuck them over"?
I mean, like a rebellion within your own citizenship,
No, I'm saying
think it's a coup
outside
idea.
Yeah, an outside force coming in, becoming citizens, and leading a rebellion.
that seems realistic though. That happens in
Well,
real life.
It is realistic, but I'm saying it would be much more commonplace than it would be in real life. and-
That seems more fun.
Yeah, I
Put
don't
down the
know. But
rebellion.
I mean, to be honest, the only people that'll be affected mostly by that are tyrannical guilds anyway. So
I'm installing communism.
Christ, everyone's the same. The node will stay at tier 2. Just,
everyone gets the same gear, everyone gets the same potions, nothing else.
yeah, everyone's a frog. If you're not a Tolnar, you suck. Actually, I'm not a Tolnar. I dwarf all the way.
Dwarven communism.
Dwarven
You wanna be a
communist-
Tolnar?
Oh, God.
I think we already talked about caravans.
Did
Or
we
did
talk
One
Yeah,
thing
about
I want to
it?
say about caravans: cool to see seasons affect
Believe they
speed
will.
of travel.
Yes.
They
So
will.
like people,
Stephen already mentioned, I think in the blog post, in fact, I think it was about muddy terrain slowing like for during the spring, because it'd be raining a lot. It will slow the caravan down, and during the winter, while there'll be roadblocks where they usually travel because of the snow. You'd also have quicker routes because the lakes will be frozen, so that offers you another route to go.
Mm.
So it's gonna be like Oregon Trail, and by the end, there's only like 2
We
guys
all
on a
die of
horse that are
dysentery.
still pulling it.
Yeah, everyone dies in dysentery camp.
Gotta eat the horses and.
No, you eat the wheels on the wagon first.
Do we get to that mini game that we get to like kill things along the side of it though?
Yeah.
'Cause,
Oh god. Well, with caravans and wagons, I wonder if you're going to be able to put ballistas and stuff on those wagons to operate as defensive. Like,
if you did have defenses, I think it would cut down on the amount of stuff you could carry.
yes, and there'd be a balance. But I think that'd be kind of cool if you, in the wagon train, there was like one of the wagons was like a ballista thing.
I think the only thing they mentioned in regards to that is just being able to hire more guards, and the mayor can invest in. The mayor also has an option to invest in protection, and also that the side of that, like guilds themselves, or guilds or the community itself that invest in a node, kind of has the sense to defend those caravans anyway, by just because it helps the node grow. Just because these caravans are going in and out, the people associated with that node will want to make sure, and the node they're trading with as well, to make sure those trades go through successfully, because any caravan that doesn't reach there is going to slow the general growth of the node, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Oh god. All I'm imagining though with a ballista is I'm imagining that scene from Game of Thrones.
I knew it.
The yeah, you knew
I
it.
knew it.
The ballista with the dragons, man. Just like I don't know. I just you brought up something you can invest in protecting your node, protecting your mayor and stuff. I wonder what a mayor's death would do, honestly, as a mechanic. Since Steven likes the idea of wanting to have players be targeted by other players and have them have a reason to target players, I think that I wonder.
Interesting.
I mean,
we still just do respawn.
I think harassing the mayor just because he's mayor is reason enough alone, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that will happen.
So
yeah, it's just like like people get stream sniped just because they're streamers. It's the same concept, really.
I mean, but the way I thought it was going to be, like, the only way like a mayor would die in that sort of aspect would be during a siege, and then that would be the loss of the node. So
when it comes down to
everything
it, though,
would
it's
change.
just a normal player who happens to have a little more power. I can't imagine they're not going to have stuff where they're out in the world outside of their node.
Well, I'm wondering if it's going to be a debuff or something, for if the mayor dies from another player from another node, I wonder if that'll debuff a node, so you actually have to have that mayor protected at all times.
Sounds like no one would want to be mayor.
I don't know. In Western times, it's like, oh, the mayor died. Let's get a new one. It isn't such a big deal.
The sheriff's dead.
It's like 2 hours.
Oh, you need to get another one. Who wants the job? And everyone's like sort of edging backwards, like
Yeah.
I think as a job like mayor and a guild leader or anything like that is stressful enough without too many additional mechanics to worry about. Generally, it is quite like just being a guild leader is a chore. It is a lot of bitch work, filling out spreadsheets and stuff like that outside the game. When you've been game, at least give guild leaders some way to actually have some fun, I guess.
Well, I know Steven was talking about how he wants to give guild leads and officers in there. He wants to give them actually buffs and stuff in game, and some things to make them so the ranks mean more than just a fancy title. You know what I mean? It kind of seems like that would be an interesting way to make it so in battle, when you're trying to target members, you can target the leader of the group or the healer, but it'd also be cool to target guild leaders and officers just based on the fact that they give out maybe AoE buffs or something like that, or they have a little bit more health or something. I don't know. Stuff like that would be kind of cool.
Like Emperorship and ESO almost.
Yeah. Emperorship and ESO I think is a good example. what you could do for people who achieve a certain rank or whatever.
And I found being an emperor was kind of throwaway. I was at the top 10 in EU, and I was bored shitless with it. I found it very much of a throwaway mechanic.
Yeah, you basically become invincible, damn near. So
yeah, and that's it. It wasn't like, and then look, some other guy's an emperor next week, or 3 days later. It wasn't really being like an emperor. I thought it was very disposable as a game element.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like that's an example. Like if you make it so like it buffs up people around you, but it also has negative side effects, that would be interesting. A certain skill tree that they would have to go down that would have buffs and debuffs and stuff like that. As well as maybe, I don't know, maybe they get buffs in other parts of the game other than PvP or PvE. I don't know.
I don't know. I'd rather see more mechanical, benefits, like getting accesses to certain properties, access to wages, salaries, taxes, things like that. Incentives that actually matters. Like you actually own things. It would make sense for a sheriff to have a sheriff's office and be able to arrest people, or have some benefits towards finding people that PK or go red or corrupt. It would make sense for them to have that kind of privilege rather than, or responsibility even, opposed to just getting buffs or being stronger in some way.
Yeah, I feel like getting a strength buff because you're a guild leader would kind of turn some people off. Because now you have to try to be a guild leader or an officer at that amount.
Well, I think you just have to try and protect them. I mean, I guess maybe you'd want that buff for yourself, but
yeah, but what I'm getting at is you're giving that player an advantage over other players who are not that.
Well,
Get
what
what I'm
if
saying?
what if
more
the
people
advantage
want to
is
try and start their own guild?
what if the
Yeah,
advantage
but then
is-
again, like
smaller
almost if you
guilds.
just like the PvP, you want to be the best PvPer on the server, but this guy's an officer in a guild, therefore you're automatically at a disadvantage.
That's what I'm getting at. Like,
Okay.
I think the officer buff would be something that benefits everybody around him, not just himself. It's not. It's not like a
Arcade had that.
selfish buff.
Arcade had that with the hero system, but those buffs were very minor, and they were very minor for a reason, because it gave too much an advantage if it was any more than just a 1 or 2%.
Yeah, they should be minor.
I'm not saying like basically you're god tier, like you're a guild leader of 200-man guild, like suddenly are able to like control the elements and bring down mountains and stuff. No, I'm talking more like give your group like a 5% magic regen boost or something. I don't know, stuff.
I'd rather see more mechanical advantages. Like a guild officer should get things to help them organized. For example, being able to mark targets as a raid leader, things like that. Is a beneficial mechanical advantage.
Like Guild Wars 2 don't they have something similar to that with the
like you can assign someone, you can buy like a position to be like the raid leader in World War II as well, basically. Armchair commander style, just shouting out orders and dropping markers here and there. But yeah, things like that are more mechanical rather than direct advantage are better in my opinion.
All right. We are edging on going over an hour and 30 minutes. So again, I'll leave it. What do you guys want to do?
5 more hours?
5 more
I thought this was a marathon, yeah.
Well,
I got nothing to do. It's up to you guys. I'm fine with whatever you guys want.
Talk for a little bit longer. I did actually want to talk about marriage. I know we've been joking about it. But I think I do want to talk about it because, it's in a few games. I mean, I can't think of any other games other than ESO that have it, but, what have you guys seen in other games that have
Final
it?
Fantasy 14 has a huge marriage system. Final Fantasy 14 has this extensive one. You've got this massive quest chain, and there's this whole ceremony. You can invite people and bring certain gifts, and you can like pay for different package levels, like pay to win style. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't give a buff or a fast travel or any of that stuff, I'm fine with it. Or even like extended inventory, shared inventory, nothing like that. Nothing that makes it something I have to do to get that advantage.
Well, I know in ESO they gave when you're in a group with a person, you get like 5% XP bonus or something. Wasn't that what it was,
Yeah,
Crumb?
it's like
Yeah.
a little XP boost while you were playing with your partner.
Yeah.
So once you hit end game, it was irrelevant. But then that kind of
Yeah.
goes back to like one of our earlier topics about how important is the journey towards end game.
Mhm.
Because then if it is an XP bonus, then that is very advantageous for speeding things up. If it is a long drawn out quest to reach the end game.
I mean the whole marriage process in Final Fantasy, because I do recall one of the members did show how it goes along. That's a cool system. I think it's really awesome that they
Yeah.
have like this complex thing, and I hope that they have it in this. So then you have characters doing their thing. Find your waifu.
I wonder if there's like people, that don't have a girlfriend or a spouse or even a best friend they would marry, for example,
Yeah.
to utilize that system or miss out on the content. If they add like an NPC waifu system, for forever aloners.
Can I customize her though? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, you get to customize it.
Once again, like
Customize your dwarven waifu.
just I don't think there should be any buffs attached to it. Personal opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree there shouldn't
agree.
be any buffs or advantage.
Mhm.
I think there should be some unusual or fun perks, maybe being able to pick them up or throw them off a bridge.
Like an emote, actually.
If it's like Revelation Line, you can pick people up, right,
Well,
and carry them and throw
cool.
them places. And
A good mechanic would maybe they can use your house or your stuff, and
Even
have
then, it's
shared ownership on
scary.
stuff.
It
I
could
mean,
get
yes,
scary.
that could get scary, but I think that would be a good way. Like if you could allow them to do stuff like that as
I
It
can
achievable through permissions for housing.
Yeah,
though,
permissions, yeah.
just for giving your friends permissions to use.
see it now. Like the Chinese industry is going to turn around instead of having, and the Russian industry is going to turn around and have mail order e-wives. a whole new sort of RMT.
It's great English.
speaks great English.
Keep your
Supermarket
freehold clean.
Selling foreign women.
Have those your crops.
Well, yeah, water your crops.
Crops.
God. I don't know. I do hope it's over the top like Final Fantasy. Definitely want it in there like that.
Oh, absolutely. There should be a ceremony and all the other stuff involved. As big as whatever they want. I'm just saying, no buffs. I don't want it something where I'm like, hey, dude, you want to get married so that we get this extra buff?
Like you don't even marry Tug of War.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Tug, if you're listening,
Hey, are
I'm
they
down.
gonna have polygamous relationships? So I can all the alliance.
Apparently, you're limited to the one-on-one encounter.
Oh, what is this?
Yeah.
Steven
You can't have a harem, unfortunately.
I can't
Steven
have,
hates
my
on our
orc-
life.
I
we
want to
have
be
a
the orc
divorce
chieftain,
court?
though, with my
I mean, you
hundreds
can-
of orc brides.
You can have a side chick. She just doesn't give you a buff.
Yeah,
There are no
what is-
buffs.
Isn't that weird that there's a Tulnar race? This is basically like, furries and you can marry one.
Are they?
Well-
Do we know what the Tolnar are?
Yeah, are they the like?
Apparently, they're like
mole
just
people?
a mixture of different animals and some human lineage in there too. So it's basically like, some guy got trapped in a cave with a goat and a lizard, and good times ensued. It's the end of the world. The things are like the apocalypse is here. Fuck it, why not? It's the end times, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well,
any port in a storm.
Stuff happens. A few generations later, you got
Bards.
the tunnel.
Oh God.
I'm gonna use that in character. Just to
So-
insult Tolnar.
What races are you guys going as, Cam and Proxy?
Depends on bonuses. I'm
Racial
not gonna
mix.
lie, I'm min max.
I'm
pro.
all about that min max.
Okay.
Really?
Really
Do you
decide
know?
what it's gonna be.
Are they going to be having crazy racial bonuses in the game?
There's racial stats that are also positive and negative, kind of
Okay.
like how sorry, not EverQuest. So many MMOs. EverQuest had like you took an ogre, you'd have high strength, but if you took an elf, it would have high intelligence or agility or dex, depending.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be that If it's very pronounced in EverQuest, very pronounced. I don't know if it's going to be that extensive or that punishing. It might be a lot lighter, more like Final Fantasy 14 was, which was very minor.
Very minor.
But I think that the bigger thing is the skills, the augments you get are probably going to be the more important one to keep in mind when choosing your race.
Mm-hmm.
I could see stuff like maybe rewarding certain weapon types for races, like just being like, oh, this fighter orc uses axes instead of a fighter human tends to use swords because they get a 5% bonus or something like that. Just kind of like pushes you towards it. You don't have to use the one that your race is suited for using, but if you do, you get a little more bonus out of it.
So
you get a legendary drop that's a two-handed sword. That's
and
fine.
you're like, meh.
Fuck.
What about classes? What do you two want to do classes wise?
Once again, min max or whatever's optimal. I enjoy playing the most. It's hard to make a decision right now for me, at least.
What do you want to be the
playing
best?
style was, like, if they were perfectly balanced and all the planets aligned.
I mean, usually I
the Earth was flat.
prefer playing DPS, either melee or ranged,
Oh yeah.
or a dot class. I really do like dot classes, but I haven't had a game where there's been a particularly good dot class for a long, long time. But usually I end up, because I'm raid leading, I usually get like shoehorned into being a fucking PvP tank. Like in Skull Knight I was in thing, and ESO I was a Dragon Knight, for example. I end up being forced into that role, and I don't like it, but it's usually what I become because of necessity.
tank, the most boring class, but
It's not
That's
not tank, but
You're the
PvP
one-
tank. Like just hundreds of HP, being able to absorb damage and suck people in, usually with some sort of ability. Like Skull Knight was a perfect example of it.
Dude, when you're the tank, you're technically the one like fighting everything.
In some ways, I guess. But now, you literally in Arcade, just run into people, spam implosion, impale, and then all your AoE abilities, and then just mana stars the nearest target kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm leaning towards DPS as well, but I can tell you I won't be a rogue. How's that?
Sure.
Bard looks interesting. I kind of want to see where they go with it.
Which
Buff class is kind of cool, but like I gotta see what everything is out there before I make my final decision. Ranger's pretty fun, always
well, I mean,
fun to shoot arrows at things.
what would you want to mix? Like Ranger Bard, Summoner
That'd
Bard.
be an interesting combo. Once again, though, like I'm all for like trying to find something that's useful, but also has a little bit of utility. So it's hard right now. We don't have like the full information on 4 of the classes, so it's hard to just throw out a definite I'm gonna be this. But I'm feeling DPS. That way I can just kind of run my hand down the keyboard like in most DPS.
Face roll, just slam.
You don't have to think. No one ever questions you.
Yeah,
There's no
you-
DPS meters. No one ever questions you.
If the raid wipes, you can I got top DPS though. I did my job right.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if I didn't
Except
step on
he's-
this particular stone or.
yeah, except he's the one who was dancing in the fire the whole
Yeah,
time.
you're just like, I sang
Yeah.
6 songs over
Well,
there.
that's for
while
the
I was
healer.
fighting.
That's for the healer to argue with me. The healer's the guy over there like, oh my god, just get out of that. Why are you there? They're just stressed out the whole time.
I've been the healer before. It's terrible when you got the DPS who's like, it's not my fault. I'm like, you were standing in the way. Like the boss has a big wind up and doesn't
Heals,
sleep.
please. Heals, please.
Crumb's
Okay,
over here
for a
freestyle
one-shot.
rapping.
Top DPS, but you didn't move out of the way to avoid that damage because you were too busy casting spells,
My cast.
The biggest letdown though is when the tank sucks. When he's just like, "What do you mean I lost aggro? What do you mean?" all of the NPC bosses all turned on the healers and just wiped the group. That wasn't me. Oh god. Oh.
All right, we're going 14 minutes over now. Should we
All right.
wrap things up? I've
Yeah.
been in like. Well, okay.
We've been at this for hours. No.
Do y'all want to touch on crafting real quick? That's the only one we didn't get to. Maybe
Touch on crafting.
We didn't talk about RMT.
Poke it.
RMT.
Missile
Oh.
arms.
No useless items.
No,
I don't
use-
want
yeah.
useless items from enemies where I'm like, okay, I have this eyeball.
That's the
Oh, you
stuff
mean
you sell.
trash? Yeah, that's the stuff
This
you
is just
sell.
trash.
Oh, that's my
Yeah,
favorite kind
exactly.
of shit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate
Are you
trash.
kidding me? On ESO, that's how you'd make money without,
I don't
you
want
know.
to. No, I
Have you
support him. I
played
do
any
not want fucking
RPG or
trash.
MMO? Jeez.
No, I hate trash. I hate just filling my inventory with random shit just to all dump it onto a vendor.
So
Yeah, I don't mind.
maybe
Yeah.
less junk, more like valuable stuff that you pick up. Like it's either something valuable or nothing at all. Like,
Yes.
doesn't have to
it all be
be
regents. Have it be
useful,
used by
but at least
some type
valuable.
of crafting.
Yeah, yeah.
Something.
Okay.
Something. Anything.
yeah,
Just not useless.
You can sell it
ones.
if you want. I'm just saying, like, not useless. I don't want quote trash. It's like a gray item that you
Yeah.
go
What
back
about-
and you're like, there's a button you click on it that even sells all the things that are quote trash.
Yeah.
You know
on
what?
the-
I think that's something that Fallout 4 did very well. Is like everything could be used for something.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
if it was a random like TV tray, it was aluminium. You could use it things like you just salvage the aluminium from it,
Mhm.
and
God damn it.
therefore
Ellen.
it was useful. So like a trash system like that would be pretty intuitive, I think.
What mythical metal is aluminium?
Aluminum.
Swear.
I know,
Certainly.
I know what you mean.
Sir, I ain't American. I pronounce things like British, like innit?
I don't
Well,
understand what you're saying. Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Gonna
you
have
for
trouble.
clarifying.
What you? Fuck.
All right, guys. I think we can call this to a close. Deathsproxy and Cam, thank you guys for coming on and hanging out and talking
Yeah.
about the game.
Yeah,
Let's do this again.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
we-
absolutely.
We definitely will in the future, and we'll probably have a lot more topics once more information comes out. But it's good to
No,
have you
part
guys
3.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
part-
Steven needs
Part
like,
3.
Yeah, we'll keep bugging
Good
Steven to
trademark?
get on here, and then we'll just get Steven on here and watch his people are like, that's not Steven. You kidding me?
Then we can ask him when Node Part 3 is.
Yeah, no part 3. Oh
You
yeah.
all know the answer.
Hey,
You all know the answer.
actually, last thing, Proxy, what is the one thing that you get annoyed most by when people ask you questions? What is the single most annoying thing that people ask?
Jesus, there's so many.
Is there solo content?
Yeah, that's so
You know, I think the ones that annoy me most are the ones that you can just easily find. Literally, like if you go on the Discord and there's like an FAQ channel of frequently asked questions, and like when is the game releasing? And it's been there, and I've said it in my videos a billion times. Even my own people in my own comment section who've watched my videos then ask me when's the game releasing. It's like it's already been asked and it's been answered like a billion times, and I'm pretty sure I've told them at least once time before. And some people even though I've told asked me anyway.
Just change your nickname on the Discord to the release date.
Oh god, that's actually a good idea. Have all the moderators be different frequently asked questions. Will be their
2020
names.
TM.
Yeah.
2020 TM. He's my favorite mod.
Oh god, he's a good guy. He's pretty chill. No, but yeah, thank you.
It's got good eyesight.
thank you guys for coming here. I think we'll call this to a close so Telltale can eat, and
Yeah.
and Proxy. I guess you'll keep doing Proxy stuff since you don't sleep apparently. So
I mean, who
How they sleep.
sleeps?
yeah, what is
waits.
sleep? Yeah, he just sits there in a chair in the corner staring off.
If you didn't know, my little avatar, my little Reaper, is actually
Yeah.
designed to look somewhat like me because I never sleep and I actually do have quite pronounced black eye lines around my eyes because of that. Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's something to laugh at. But...
Oh wait, you guys, weren't we gonna bring what was this episode brought to you by?
Brought-
What did
Cornflakes?
Brought to you by Jeffrey
Yeah.
Bard.
What the fuck? is
Jeffrey,
Who the fuck is-
just placing his name on it. No, wasn't it? We give him shitty fucking workout tips. That's what we do at the end of every episode.
Oh,
Remember, guys.
drink your orange juice.
Oh yeah, and also stretch before gaming. Sometimes you get a Charlie horse in your
Fuck
finger.
stretches
When you
before
squat,
gaming?
it's all on your back.
The only
Yeah, it's
stretching
all
I'm
in-
doing before gaming is getting myself from my bed to my computer.
All right, all right. Well, we'll end this now. You guys all have a good night. Thanks for watching, and Cam and Proxy, thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.